Good morning. Today I wanted to talk about the books that I read in February, and I thought that I would split it up by the different formats since that's kind of how I read. Not that I read all the audiobooks first and then all the ebooks and then all the physical books, but they're kind of like different reading streams. I'm not sure if that's the best way to describe it. That's how I'm describing it. So I read 8 books this month, 4 of which were audiobooks. I should really count these before I start talking. 1, 2, 3, 4. So I read 8 books this month. 4 of them were audiobooks, 2 were ebooks, and 2 were physical books. And I did already talk about 3 of them in my mid-February wrap-up. So for those ones, I won't go into very much details. I'll just refer you to that video if you want to know more of my thoughts. But firstly, if we talk about audiobooks, I read all 4 books of the Wolves of Mercy Falls series by Maggie Stiefvater. And to be honest, because I listened to them like pretty much just non-stop during my commute, all 4 books are somewhat blended together in my brain. I find it quite hard to separate them, although it is true that the 4th book is quite different in that it's in a completely different locations. The main characters are side characters in the first 3 books, but the main characters from the first 3 books only kind of have small cameos in the last book. So I found these books enjoyable enough. I think as audiobooks, the narrators were really nice to listen to, especially Grace, the main character from the first 3 books, had a very calming narration style, and it was kind of perfect for heading into work and like calming you down on the way to work. But that said, these are kind of YA paranormal romances is probably the best way to say it. Basically follows 2 characters, Grace and Sam, who have a romance going, but some of the characters in the books are werewolves, where werewolfism is triggered by temperature, which I did find that to be quite an interesting concept. But in general, there was very little paranormal parts in the story. It was much more about Sam and Grace's romance and kind of their character development, some of which was definitely impacted by the paranormal stuff, but they're just, I don't know, it felt very slow, which is what a lot of people said about the Raven cycle, which I didn't get, but I definitely felt with the Wolves of Mercy Falls, every book would be quite slow and then a big rush of exciting stuff happening at the end. So I did think they were okay, but I am very glad I read them on audiobook because I'm not sure I would have been as patient if I was reading in physical form. And then the last book in the series was this one that follows Isabel and Cole in LA, and I actually found this one a lot more entertaining and kind of funny, even though there were very few paranormal elements in this book. There's hardly any werewolves at all. It's more about kind of dealing with fame and unhealthy relationships, and I enjoyed it, but mostly just because I think I enjoyed what flawed characters they were. But yeah, I pretty much gave every book in the series 3 stars. They were okay, but nothing amazing. Okay, so then let's talk about ebooks. The 2 that I read was Tower of Dawn and Beneath the Sugar Sky. Tower of Dawn I already talked about in my mid-March wrap-up, and I gave it 2 stars, so if you want to know why, then I had quite a nice little rant about it that you might enjoy. Let's put that aside and talk about Beneath the Sugar Sky, because I enjoyed Beneath the Sugar Sky a lot more. And I actually definitely want to get a physical copy of the whole Wayward Children series, actually. So I don't think I said Beneath the Sugar Sky. I'm pretty sure everyone knows by now, but it's by Seanan McGuire, and it is the 3rd book in the Wayward Children series. I do still think Down Among the Sticks and Bones, which is the 2nd book in the series, was my favorite, mainly because it was just so much more focused on particular characters. I do feel the other books were let down a bit by the fact that they are very short books, but they tried to cover so many perspectives. For example, in Beneath the Sugar Sky, it sort of sets up this expectation that Cora is going to be the main character. Cora's from a water world where she, just to explain, in the Wayward Children series, each character has at some point found their way through a door to another world where they've really enjoyed themselves, they felt like they belonged. Then for whatever reason they found themselves back in our world and they're unhappy about it, so they come to this home for wayward children until they can find their doors again. So we're following Cora. I'm expecting her to find her door again and us go on a journey, and instead there were a whole bunch of other characters' stories included. They do go on an exciting adventure, and I definitely liked learning about the worlds that we went to. But because it's such a short book, all of these books are very short, I didn't feel like I got enough of any individual characters' stories to really make me entirely satisfied. So then, physical books. The first one that I read was Dragonseye by McCaffrey, which is the 14th book in the Dragons of Pern series. There are like 20 something books in this series, so I'm trying to work through it. I started reading these many years ago, and I do enjoy the world. I find it quite interesting, so I want to keep going. This particular story, though, was set... So Dragons of Pern is set in this world called Pern, where every 200 years or so this red planet gets closer to the planet of Pern, and these thread fall down from the red planet onto Pern, and basically anything they land on they completely destroy. So when they first colonized the planet they had quite a lot of technology, but this thread falling disrupted them quite a lot, and also they had been planning to live with less technology, but they do develop basically genetically engineer these dragons to help them destroy thread by burning them in the air. And the first books, I think, are set in quite like after like the 14th fall of thread or something, so a long time after they've colonized the planet. This book is set in about the second fall, so it's kind of read a bit like a history book, which is a bit weird. So it's kind of explaining how some of the situation in the earlier books that are set later, it was kind of explaining how things got to that situation and how the stuff that people did during the second fall influenced what happened later on. It did try to kind of follow different individual stories, I think, to kind of set up that connection with the characters, but the way it was told never really felt like their story was anything more than just a tool to explain this historical explanation. So it was definitely interesting in terms of exploring how things that you do might influence the future. And in this book especially, they're kind of taking a proactive approach to certain issues to try and make sure people of the future will have what they need. I did like thinking about that, but there were parts where this was a bit hard going. I'm hoping that some of the next books I've seen follow particular characters, so I'm hoping I'll enjoy them a bit more. So the next book that I just managed to squish in on the last day of February was Capricious, the gender diverse pronouns issue, which I helped to fund through Kickstarter, something like that. It's basically a collection of short stories, mainly by New Zealand and Australian authors, exploring different kind of gender diverse pronouns. And some of the stories I really enjoyed, some of them less so. That's pretty much the way it is with every short story collection. It was also really interesting to see which of the stories I found the different pronouns easy to deal with and which ones I found more difficult. I definitely dealt a lot better with people just using the word they to be kind of like gender neutral in their pronouns, whereas neo pronouns, as they call them, pronouns that people have kind of created for more diverse genders, are more difficult to work with. Although what I did find interesting is that one of the first stories had way more pronouns than any of the other stories, like new created ones, but I read in the section about the author that they were a linguist and that they based those pronouns on kind of Latin, and I actually found those ones, even though it was a more complex system, I found it a lot easier to read. So it shows you the value of linguists getting involved in these kind of conversations. But yeah, definitely some lovely stories in here, especially the one that this cover image is based on, I think was one of my favorites, and it was just overall pretty thought-provoking, and I enjoyed it, and I'm glad that I helped to fund it, and even it's got my name in the back, so special. So yeah, that was the 8 books that I read. I think I'm pretty happy with having read that many books. I definitely think it is easier to read more books when you read some audiobooks, especially because I have a bit of an annoying commute that I can fit that into. If you have read any of those books, I'd love to talk to you about them down in the comments, or anything else that you might want to talk about. Just say hi. I hope you are having a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.